Hello, hello. It is Erica with Holy Rustic and Redheaded Princess Designs. And we are here today to paint your February Wagon Club of the month. So this month's club box is this cute little St. Patty's Day design. So let me switch our cameras around here. Whoops. There we go. All right, and now we can get a painting. So these are all your pieces that you're going to get in your wagon club. You're going to get a cute little cauldron. You're going to get a little sign that says Irish Kisses, a top hat, the front of your wagon piece, which says Lucky Me, 2 clouds, and your pieces for your rainbow. So let's start by doing all of our white pieces. So we're going to use our makeup sponge to paint these. Included in every one of our kits is a makeup sponge. We love using these to paint with. The trick here is you're going to use the rectangle end of the sponge, and you don't want a ton of paint on there. And we're just coming in and tapping straight up and down. Remember, it's better to do thin coats instead of trying to put all the paint on there at one time. We could do this with the brush, but we've got a lot to paint here, and so I'm just going to do it all with my sponge. So we're going to do both of these little clouds for our rainbow. We're going to do the back of our Irish Kisses sign. I forgot to offload, and so I have too much paint over here. So I'm going to pull some of that off so that dries. Anytime you're doing a lighter color, a color that's a little bit more opaque and not as pigmented like white, we're going to have to definitely do at least 2 coats, possibly 3. We'll just see how it does. Oh, we're just coming in and giving this a nice even coat. All right, we're going to do the back of our Lucky Me sign. With that white as well. I'm not worried about those etched lines. They're just there to show me where to put my letters. So it's okay if I get some paint down in those. If I was trying to be a little more particular, I would definitely make sure I didn't have a ton of paint on my sponge, and I would definitely make sure I was tapping up and down when I came over those, just to be sure that I'm not pushing a bunch of paint down in there. But even though it looks like they're gone right now, once that dries, they will pop back out. We're going to do a second coat. Now that first coat's going to dry pretty quickly. You're going to find that the wood really soaks that paint up, which means we can very quickly come back and start our second coat, and then we can determine whether we need to do a third coat or not. So easy, thin coats of paint. You're going to find it so much better than trying to put all the paint on there at one time. What happens when we get too carried away with the paint and we get too much paint on there is that it just ends up being goopy. It takes forever to dry, and it just doesn't look as nice as if we're just putting the thinner coats here. Okay, I am going to use the brush on this piece. So let me find a brush that is not so crunchy. This one should work. Just because I want these lines to go back and forth, I want this to kind of have that wood look. And so I'm going to use the brush here. Now, I do not paint the edges of my pieces. I like that nice wood burned look. So when I'm pulling that brush across, I am being a little cautious as I get towards the edge and just making sure that I don't have a ton of paint on my brush and I'm not pulling it over the edge of my piece. I will say that takes a little bit of practice to get to the point where you can kind of just come right up to that edge, but it's totally possible to do with the brush. If you get a little too crazy and you notice that you have a bunch of paint all over your edges, just grab you a baby wipe and wipe those edges off before that paint dries, and you'll still have that nice wood burn edge. or you can paint the edges. It's totally up to you, whatever you prefer. All right, I do think we're going to need a second coat, so we're just going to go ahead and come in while we've got this brush in our hand and give everything, I mean, a third coat really. Third coat of paint here. Now you'll notice if I am moving my brush 2 different directions, as I finish out that piece, I'm just coming back in one direction across the piece. So if I have to move the brush horizontal to kind of get in some of those tighter spaces or get better coverage, I'm just coming back with some vertical lines, just kind of go back over everything to make sure all my brush strokes are going the same way. Brush strokes really do play a lot into how things end up looking when you're finished. It's like anytime we're painting anything like animals or anything in classes, I always tell people you're taking your brush the direction that you want things to appear to be. Because while that may not seem like it makes much of a difference, it really does in the end. All right, just going back over this. And I think that should do it for all of our white pieces. All right, so we're gonna put that brush in the water cup and let's do our gray next. So that is gonna be this cauldron. And so we're gonna do not the coins and not the clover, but this little lip of the cauldron and the actual cauldron itself. So I'm just gonna rinse that brush off a little bit. I still have some white on there, which is great. I'm gonna pick up a tiny bit of my black and we're just gonna come in and mix a nice gray here for our cauldron. Now our pieces up here are 3D, so I don't have to worry so much about that top. I'm just gonna put some paint up there just so I know that it's covered. And then I just kind of want this nice streaky gray, which is why I'm kind of mixing it instead of just using a gray from a bottle. Anytime you can mix a color instead of just using straight from a bottle, you're just going to get a better look. And anytime I mix paint, I don't fully mix the colors. That way I have kind of some variation in how things are looking on my piece. All right, we're going to try. I probably should do this with a sponge, but I've got my brush. So we're just going to come right around the lip here and do this little piece. And this is going to look so cute in our wagon for St. Patty's Day. There we go. All right. We'll come back and do a little shadow on that. Just going to drag a little bit of that across here. Again, I'm not worried about the top there, which is why it's not as painted as the rest. All right, we're going to let that dry over here. Let's do our black pieces next. We are going to use our sponge for that. So we're going to dip into the black, offload over on this side. We're going to paint this circle frame. So we're just tapping straight up and down. Again, I used that rectangle end of the sponge and just tap, tap, tap all the way around. So we have that black frame done. We're going to do the smallest piece of our rainbow with the black. Now, if you we're using the colors that we have already in the tray pieces to do this rainbow, just to kind of have a nice St. Patty's Day rainbow, and so we don't have to have a whole bunch of extra paint. But if you wanted to do it in rainbow colors, you could do that as well. This little piece on our hat is going to be black as well. I'm not painting the buckle. So just the band part, that buckle part's going to be kind of a golden color. So I'm just taking the edge of that sponge and coming right up to those edged lines. The bottom of this hat piece is black. And what else? I think that's it. So while I've got this black on my sponge, I want to add a little bit of a shadow here to our cauldron. So we're going to just take that sponge. We're coming right around that edge and just barely tapping that color on there. The trick here is to not have a ton of paint on your sponge and to really come in right around the edge. So I'm not on the top of the piece, and you'll see I'm holding it up in the air. And even if I wasn't trying to show you, I would still be holding this up, because if I try to do it down here on my table, I get kind of an odd angle on it and it doesn't look as soft as it does when I'm able to hold it up in the air. Okay, I think those are all of our black pieces. So we're going to clip this sponge. All I'm going to do is grab my scissors and I'm going to come straight across and just clip that excess off my sponge. And now I have a clean sponge that I can use for a different color. So let's do our lighter green first. So a little bit of a lighter green color here. And we're going to come in, we're going to do the word lucky. Now you'll notice I have a little piece here that's stuck inside this Y. It's just a piece that didn't fall out on the laser. A lot of times you can just take your fingers and push on it. If that doesn't work, you can grab the handle of a paintbrush and just kind of poke at it and it should pop right out. A lot of times those pieces are just barely hanging on and somehow they just made it through the laser pickup process without getting completely punched out. So that's not the end of the world. Just take you, a lot of times, like I said, your fingers will work, or just a little pin or back of your paintbrush. All right, so we're doing that lucky. We're going to do this Irish Kisses in the lighter green. My lighter green is very thin, so we're going to definitely need a couple coats here to make this pop. And we want one of our rainbow pieces, so the third one up, I'm going to do in this light green as well. I'm not loving that green that I grabbed. I don't know if it may not have been shaken up all the way. This one looks empty. Not getting any paint out of that. All right, let's try. If I have the color that I really need in here. Let's grab a little bit of this one. Okay. I think that might be even thinner. Okay, we're going to add just a little bit of white to it to do this base coat, and then hopefully that way when we come in and put our second coat on, we have a little bit more grab there to our color. All right, so we can come back in for coat number 2. There we go. That's a nice coverage. All right. And our word lucky. And then back to this rainbow piece. And let's grab, I feel like that rainbow piece needs one more coat. So we're just going to do a quick dry here and just give this a third coat. I can't count today. Okay. And this will just brighten it up a little bit more. So the biggest thing with painting is don't give up too soon. A lot of times what I see is people get frustrated because it doesn't look just like the picture on that second or first try. And so a lot of times what it is you just need to keep going, keep blending, keep adding another coat, because if you don't and you quit too soon, you're just that far from not getting it. And then the other trick is make sure you let those coats of paint really dry well in between, because if you don't, a lot of times you're just pulling the paint back off. We're going to switch to our darker green color. So I'm not going to clip that sponge because I have green on there. So we're going to be just fine by just going straight into that regular green. Nice Kelly green here. We're going to do these little shamrocks. We're going to do our hat. We're going to do the word me. M and this E. And we're going to do the second rainbow piece. And you'll see we got a pretty decent coverage with that green. I could certainly leave it. I'm going to go ahead and just do a second coat. A lot of times those darker colors don't really need a second coat, but we're going to go ahead and put them on here. Excuse me, sir, how did you get out? I am dog sitting for my mom. So I have to take him to the vet here in just a bit. I had him in the other room and he has escaped. See how much difference just a second quick coat does. That's the beauty of that. All right, and then one more time over here. I'm not going to do a ton of shadows and highlights on this set, but I do want to add just a little bit up here to the top of this hat. We've got the piece that goes here. We've got a piece that goes here. So just want to add just a smidge right here. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black, and I'm going to come in this little ovally space, which is the top of the hat, and just barely tap. So I still have that green on my sponge, and I'm just barely tapping kind of around that ovally space. It's hard to do with this sponge. I could definitely do it probably better with a brush, but we've got this, so we're just going to make it work. Just want a little bit of a shadow there. It's nothing dramatic. Okay, so that to the side, we have our golden color that we need to do next. So we're going to clip that sponge again. I'm going to clip a little further up just to make sure I get all that green off, because I don't want green and yellow mixing. That would not be very nice. We're going to take a little bit of our golden color and paint these coins. You'll see that it's almost the same color as the wood here. It's just kind of a goldenish color. We're going to do this last rainbow piece. I'm actually going to throw a little bit of yellow in there with it. Now, yellow tends to be very transparent. So anytime you're using yellow, it's great to have something else to go with it, like a white, or like in this case, this golden. That kind of gives it just a little bit more of a base. And we've got to do this buckle part here. I think I'm going to do that with a brush. Let's see. We'll grab a little bit of that gold and just come in and paint this little buckle part. Now, if you have glitter paint, this would be a fun place to put your glitter on all these little golden pieces. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow, kind of right where the coins are. If you don't have the yellow, you could add a little more white to your gold. And I'm really not being picky about it. I'm going to show you why here in a second. So I'm going to give that a second to dry. We've got our brush. We'll just brush a little bit of this golden yellow on our rainbow piece. Very nice. All right, let's give this a dry. I just want to make sure those queens are dry so I don't move that paint too much. And then I'm going to come back with my sponge and just kind of go back over everything. And that yellow that I put down is going to show through just a little bit, not a ton, but you can kind of see where the coins are a little bit lighter than the rest. Okay, I think that is everything. Super quick and easy to paint this one up. So we're going to start gluing. Inside your kit, you're going to have a tube of craft glue, B7000, E6000, something of that nature. The thing you need to know about this glue is it is not a quick dry glue. It does take some time for it to dry. A full 24 hours, everything needs to lay flat. So don't glue your pieces down and then go set them up. It's going to seem like it's dry, but I promise you it is not. When you do your gluing, you need just a dot, not a lot. And you're going to put that glue just right in those spaces where you want to glue things down. So we're going to start with the bottom of the hat here and our little buckle. The glue that we send you does dry clear, so you don't have to worry if you get a little too much. It's not going to be the end of the world. So there's our cute little St. Patty's Day hat. Let's move these pieces over. This is the front of the wagon. So also in your kit, you have two little hooks. These just go right inside here. And that is how this hangs on your wagon. I never paint these. And I always have extras laying around because I don't usually put them up when I put my kit up. For this season, I usually just use the same ones over and over. But if you want to store them with each individual kit, you certainly could do that. All right, so we have the word me. And I'm just putting these right over where those etched lines are. And then we have our word lucky. And this glue, the glue that we send you, is designed to hold long term. So it's not going to go anywhere. A lot of times people are like, can I use hot glue? You certainly could use hot glue. Here's my problem with hot glue. If you set this somewhere where the sun is shining in your window or where it's going to get warm, a lot of times that will reactivate your hot glue and then your pieces will fall off. So especially when we're doing like door hangers and things like that, I don't like to use hot glue to put pieces on because if it's on the door and the sun is shining, that can soften that glue and it's not a permanent adhesive. So this is permanent. It is not going anywhere. A lot of times I have tried to take pieces back off after they're dry and it's pretty much impossible. So here's the frame for this little Irish Kisses piece. I'm going to make sure my shiplap lines are going left to right here and that they're straight as I put on this piece that says Irish Kisses. You could also use like a Q-tip or a toothpick to put the glue on if you're a little more OCD about it and you don't want any glue coming out. People are funny about glue. Some people use a lot of glue and some people do not use very much glue. And I realize I'm missing an eye. Okay, we're gonna put this on here, but I am missing this eye here. It's probably on my desk somewhere. I don't readily see it. I don't want to make too much noise by moving things around, but you should have a letter I that goes right there. Okay. I'll have to locate mine. I always, as I was pulling these off the laser, I kept forgetting that that was not attached like the rest of the letters are. Okay, so we're going to put these little shamrocks down here at the bottom. Cute. Cute. All right, we've got our little cauldron. So this piece is like the lip for our pot of gold. I think it's about time to switch out this tabletop because it's getting very uneven with all the paint buildup and stuff. I just used a piece of wood for the top of my desk here. Now I don't have to stress about what it looks like. And my desk is made out of those cubes, you know, you can buy, like the storage cubes. So I've got one on each side so I can put stuff in it. It's not like a regular desk. Okay, so there's that cauldron. There's our hat. Now for the rainbow, oh, we got to put this guy goes on the cauldron. For the rainbow, come on. This glue needs to be refilled. I keep this one on my desk because I just refill it. Those little bottles are pretty expensive. And so I don't like using those when I'm doing demos and stuff. So I keep this one here so I can just fill it back up. Okay, for the rainbow. So the rainbow doesn't get glued too much. I'm going to show you here. So we're going to lay all these pieces down. Here's our little rainbowy pieces. And then the thing that holds the rainbow together are these cloud pieces over here on the edges. So all I'm going to do is put some glue on the back of this cloud, kind of in the center because it doesn't go all the way across. You could also put the glue here, however you want to do it. It doesn't matter. And then I'm just going to line the bottom of that cloud up with the bottom of the rainbow pieces because that's what holds all of this together. There's no like big piece in the back that is holding that up. So you want to try to put as much of the cloud up on the rainbow as possible so you have a little bit more stability with your rainbow pieces. So we're just gluing that. I'm lining up the edge there and then gluing that together, and we'll just let that lay there to dry. Okay, I'm going to look for that letter I. I don't even know if he's here. I don't see him. It's been sitting on my table for a minute, so it's probably got knocked off somewhere because that's what happens when I don't wrap things up. But anyways, you should have an I there for Irish quizzes. I do know how to spell. And that's just a one. It's basically a stick, right? It looks just like this I right here. So that is your Wagon Club box for the month of February. You can join and you will get this month's box as long as you join by the end of the month. And then on each one of our Wagon Club kits, you're going to get a little coupon code that you can use for any of our wagon kits on the website. So let me grab my wagon over here so we can just look at it and see what it looks like. Sometimes we talk about the wagon and people aren't sure what exactly it is. So this is our wagon. I've got some paper stuff down in mine. And like I told you, I just keep these. You can see there's whole bunches of them in here. I just keep some little brown crinkly paper down in here so that my pieces will stand up a little bit better. And I can show you. So this is just going to hang right there on this side of the wagon. So cute. And then you can position your pieces. See if I can do this without knocking anything off because the glue is still drying. Remember, you want to let these lay flat to dry completely, but you can position your pieces around in your wagon. I would probably set the rainbow kind of over to the side. Whoop, there we go. When I display this. So however you want to do that, but super cute little piece that you can change out seasonally. And the great thing is then you don't have a ton of things to store because all you're storing, instead of storing this huge wagon, you're just storing these pieces. So they fit really nicely inside like a gallon baggie. And then I just drop them down with the rest of my decor. So I hope that you had fun painting this. I'd love to see pictures of yours when you're finished painting it. And don't forget to tag us in any pictures that you post on social media because I do really love seeing how everybody changes things up. Everybody always adds their own little flair to it. So have a fabulous day, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye, y'all.